Welcome to tonight's LD18 General Monthly Meeting. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Larry Bodine. I'm the District Chair. And now it is my titanic pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, and that is Democrat Adrian Fontes. He was elected in 2022 by a margin of 120,000 votes, and he chased Mark Fincham clean out of Pima County. Good riddance. Adrian was featured on the cover of Time magazine last October, and previously he served as the Maricopa County Recorder from 2017 to 2021. And with that, Adrian, the floor is yours. Go right ahead, Adrian.
Hey, everybody. Adrian Fontes, Secretary of State. How's everybody doing? I hope well. I wanted to give you a quick update from the Secretary of State's office, especially for you good folks in Tucson. Congratulations on the monsoon breaking your heat down there a little bit. I think the other day you guys had some hail in some spaces and a little bit of damage. I hope everybody's doing okay. We're doing phenomenal in the Secretary of State's office. We've spent the first 6+ months making sure that we've got a staff that is second to none. We've never had this many experienced election administrators and election career professionals in the office. It's just never happened before. And I am tickled pink to be in charge of an amazing team. That's going to make up for the shortfalls that we experienced from the budget. We did not get the help that we were hoping to get. I think the Department of Law did either over the AG's office. So we're going to have to make do with what we've got. But the good thing is, again, our amazing team has already patched up a bunch of security holes that we discovered that had been around for a while. We have redistributed some of the resources. We found some good, solid little pockets of waste, and we've been able to really patch things up on the inside. That's on the operations side. Now, on the more policy side and some of the other application side, I wanted to talk briefly about the elections procedures manual. A lot of people are freaking out about that because there's a lot of folks out there who are just kind of trying to kick up dust for one reason or another. And it's on both sides of the political aisle. I'm not a fan of both siderism or blaming people, but bottom line is this. Starting with the Reagan administration, when I was the Maricopa County Recorder, we saw a Secretary of State's office take the manual in directions it should not have gone. That practice was continued for good or for bad under the Hobbs administration. We're going back to the basics. And I'll give you one really quick example of what we're fixing. The Elections Procedures Manual, and by the way, we haven't had a solid approved one by the governor and the attorney general since 2014. So this is a lot of political fights in this thing. We're trying to eliminate the political fights and eliminate the lawsuits that could be coming and hurting our counties. And here's how. Quick example of me fixing things that were broken. The Elections Procedures Manual said in past iterations that the county recorder shall establish physical locations for early voting. But that's not what the statute says. The statute doesn't mandate such a thing. And since this is supposed to have the force and effect of law, the Elections Procedures Manual cannot force a duly elected constitutional officer to do something that the statute doesn't force that person to do. So where some people say, well, that means that some voters might lose out. Well, that is entirely possible, but that's not really the point here. The point here is we're fixing problems from the past. We're trying to make sure that we're doing it right. And sometimes that's a little bit unpopular, and I'm willing to take the hits on that because, I'm not here to do what's popular. I'm here to do what's right. And what's right is to make sure that the entire manual has the force and effect of law, that all of those new election administrators really know what is real and what is just sort of opinion. And in the old manuals that we had, the drafts, because none of them were ever real, right, approved by the governor and the attorney general after the secretary's draft, we had problems. So what I want to do is make sure that folks understand that the procedures manual process has been completely open. We've released all 5 sections to the various counties over the last 5 months. We're in our final commentary period right now. We will be opening it up for public comment, which is not mandated by law, by the way. That's something that we're doing voluntarily, opening it up for public comment. Starting on August 1st, you'll be able to see the draft of the whole thing. We'll take commentary for 2 weeks. And before October 1st deadline, we will have the final draft for the governor and the attorney general's office to see. And I want to make sure everybody also knows this. We have sent copies to the attorney general, to the governor, and to the legislature every time we've put out drafts of the different sections. So everybody should already know what's going on. None of this is new to anyone. I want to make sure that everybody is fully apprised of the fact that we're doing this the right way. finally in Arizona. And I'm excited to be providing the counties that manual that they deserve. A couple other things really quick. We're almost all staffed up. We've got our outreach person who's going to be starting in the next week, I think, and we're going to be establishing some stuff. We're getting some meetings set up with the Navajo DOJ to get up there. We're working with the Intertribal Council of Arizona to work on some other issues around the state and making sure that all of the county officials have the resources that they need. And as a matter of fact, I was talking to the Pima County recorder today on a particular issue of some importance, and we're communicating really well with folks across the entire state. I'm very excited about where we're at, but what we need from you guys is really simple. This is not just a call from the Secretary of State. This is a call from one of the state's leading Democrats. Listen carefully, Democrats. We need to get it together. We need to be registering voters as of yesterday. We need to be raising money into our candidates' funds as of yesterday, because we're going to have a hell of a fight on our hands. If we're going to take the majority in the House and in the Senate, we need strong county parties. We need strong legislative districts. We need a strong state party, and only you can make that happen. You're the only ones that can do that. This is the clarion call. We have a Democrat in the governor's office, in the secretary's office, and in the attorney general's office. And a couple of those races were very, very close. We are going to be hard pressed to make sure that we get and push through. And they're expecting us to fight hard. So we've got to meet the moment, folks. We've got to dig in deep. We've got to register voters. We've got to organize across the entire state. So start with the postcards, start with the door knocking, start with the registering of voters now. Do not do the traditional thing that Arizona's Democrats do and wait. And many of you don't do that, by the way. I want to make sure everybody knows. I'm not putting everybody in the same pile. Lots of folks work all year round. You guys need to grab everybody else and bring them along so that everybody is working all year round. We are almost a year away from the primaries. We've got some great primaries in a couple of congressional districts here in Maricopa County. We've got a lot of possibilities out there, folks. This is really the moment. We've got to give our governor the legislative majorities that she needs in the Senate and in the House to beat back this nonsense. I want to see Democrats running Arizona because we're the ones who are not countenancing half of our party as insanity. We're not countenancing half of our party who want to leave the United States of America, half of our party who don't want people to vote. That doesn't exist for us. We want everyone to vote. We want our elections to be fair and square, and we want to win. Well, if we're going to win, we need to fight. And so I want to make sure that we're pushing really, really hard. But I want to close on this other point right here. Not only all of those LDs and all those candidates need help. I am going to make a direct ask right now of you in the LD. If you could please go to electfontes.com. I think one of my folks is on the chat here and can put that link in the chat. We need a little bit of help as well. And here's my plan. I want to have $300,000 in the bank by January so that I can stop and focus all my efforts on helping Democrats in Arizona and across the country get elected. Thank you, Laura, for putting that in the chat. If you could go and pitch in, help us build that little bank so that I can get out of the way during 2024. Otherwise, I'm going to have to continue to fundraise so I can do the things necessary that I have already been doing. For example, helping get our state party chair paid full time. That's right. We have found some funding. I helped with the negotiations on that to make sure that we could have a full-time paid party chair. That doesn't come easy and it doesn't come cheap. The state party still needs some help with that as well. But we finally have it for the first time in God knows how long. And so Yolanda Bejarano is going to be able to do work across Arizona because of those efforts. I couldn't do that without my campaign funds helping me to get to Chicago, to get to Washington, D.C., to get to these places like the state party speech that I gave at their big dinner in North Carolina, where we talked a lot about Arizona and North Carolina as well. We're getting out there and doing the work, folks. I'm doing the work, and I need your support, just like all of the rest of our candidates do. So if you can pitch in, I certainly would appreciate it. That gets me out of the way, fundraising-wise, for 2024. So if you can get us some help and shut me up for the next year, that'll be phenomenal, so that we can focus on 2024 candidates. I want to help Democrats win up and down the ballot, but we've got to have resources so that I can get out there and do that work as well nationally to bring money and attention and resources into Arizona. So I'm going to go back to Larry and ask you to ask me some of these questions that are popping up in the chat here. And then I will let you guys on with the rest of your meeting. Thank you so much for any help that any of you can give. Please go to electfontes.com and pitch in. I'll go ahead and answer a couple questions now.
All right.
Thanks.
So the way that people can ask questions now is to type them in the chat. We're not raising hands tonight. And I just wanted to get us started off by asking you, Adrian, what is the most important issue that Democrats should emphasize in the upcoming elections?
Abortion. I think the political question is abortion. I think the biggest policy question is water. But if you're asking for the political question, it's choice. It's women being able to choose whatever the hell they want to do with their own bodies. I mean, this is a question of liberty. It's a question of freedom, and it goes to all of the rest of the issues. This is really critically important. And I don't see any reason why we should run away from that at all. There is a very small portion of Arizonans who are against women's choice and against women's bodies. The vast majority of our voters across the political spectrum are about choice. So if you were asking me a political question, I would say abortion should be number one in 2024, particularly after Roe fell. And the second one, from a policy perspective, would be water. Water ties in with climate, of course. That's one of the biggest ones for me, has always been. But that's the difference between policy and politics. You got to determine during which times you're going to be talking about which one is what. But both of those, I think, are incredibly important. Obviously, ESAs and the bankrupting of Arizona's budget is going to be critical too. But I think from a political perspective, where we can get the most people to support us and our candidates, it's going to have to be choice.
All right, let's turn to Patricia Weedoff, who has been monitoring the chat. What questions do we have for Adrian?
Do you have an opinion on single shot election strategy?
Yeah, I don't like it. And let me tell you why I don't like it. Because it allows for a loss, an automatic loss. It's like you never get a chance on that second seat. I mean, it's okay for the one candidate who's going to be the single shot candidate. But what about the possibility of engaging two different campaigns in that district, engaging two different sets of friends and families and social networks in that district? Maybe we should stop playing for a close second in Arizona, Democrats. Maybe we should start playing to win. Maybe in 2022, had we fielded enough candidates in the first place to mathematically win the legislature in the House and to possibly win in the Senate, we didn't even have enough candidates to win, folks. That kind of leadership is of yesterday. That's of, let's play for a close second so we can maybe pressure the Republicans. Not on my watch. We're going to fight to win. We need to field candidates in every office, in every seat, across the entire state. And don't give me this nonsense about, oh, well, that wastes resources. Wrong. And that's a wrong-headed way to look at things. You're not wasting anything when you're bringing more people and engaging more folks in the process in these legislative districts. Think about it. You got one candidate that people know. You got another candidate who might be coming in, and they might have a tougher shot. But guess what they bring along with them? They bring their friends, they bring their families, they bring their social networks, they bring their business networks, they bring all of the folks who know them. A lot of people who may not ever get involved in politics all of a sudden find themselves with a reason to get excited about a candidate because this is somebody that they know. Why in the world would we not engage more people in politics? Like, what are we, that selfish in the one person who holds the seat? No, it's balderdash. It's silly. It says the president says it's malarkey. I think it's a loser strategy. It's what kept us in the minority in 2022. And I hope anybody who's talking about that pulls their head out of their ass because that's wrong-headed. And forgive me if that you're of, or anybody on this call is of that mind, but that's not just numbers. It's the bigger game that we're looking at. And let's not forget, we've got big races on the ticket. We've got a Senate race and a presidential race. We're going to have bigger turnout than normal, and Democrats turn out in presidential cycles. So why would we single shot anything? So yeah, maybe I do have an opinion on that.
What can be done to get more of the Arizona federal-only voters access to vote in state races?
Well, if we take the legislature, we can get rid of the freaking ridiculous notion of a Fed-only ballot. I mean, we can do that, right? Yeah. So why don't we win the legislature? So much hinges on that political power at the legislature. And it's unfortunate. This isn't rocket science. What can be done out on the street? Well, get those folks to prove their citizenship on paper to the county recorder of their choice in their county, or just, help folks figure that out. in the first place, there's not that many Fed-only voters. Okay, so I don't know if it's a humongous margin in any precinct in any legislative district. So, that's kind of dancing around the edges on some of these issues. Why don't we go win some races, take back the majority in the House and the Senate, and get rid of this stupid bifurcated voting system that we have in Arizona that denies so many American citizens some of their rights just because they didn't have that one piece of paper that proves that they are who they are. Right? I mean, we're burden shifting. This is a fundamental right, and I'm really disappointed that we haven't focused more on winning and reversing these crazy politics versus just dealing with the crazy policies that the Republicans shoved down our throats for so long.
Okay. What can you tell us about going to Washington and talk to Jack Smith?
Well, I don't know, because I didn't go to Washington to talk to Jack Smith. I have been to my office to talk to folks, been subpoenaed by folks, but I haven't been to Washington, D.C. to talk to the special prosecutor. So whoever asked that question, I'm very sorry. I have not met Mr. Smith, and that's about all I have to say about that.
Next question. What is your position on whether the 45th president should be able to run in light of the 14th Amendment's prohibition on those who participate in an insurrection?
Yeah, well, I don't think Anthony Kern should be in the legislature right now. I think he's barred by the 14th Amendment. I think Donald Trump is barred by the 14th Amendment. I think anybody who participated in that insurrection, and people are like, oh, nothing happened. Oh, yeah? Well, why do we already have 9 people convicted of seditious conspiracy? Why did 5 of them admit guilt to seditious conspiracy under oath in a competent court of law? Because there was a seditious conspiracy against the United States of America, and it took place during that same insurrection. It's kind of crazy that people still think it's okay to violate. Yeah, and Jake Hoffman, thank you very much, whoever put that in the chat there. Yeah, to him too. These guys, as far as I'm concerned, are not legitimately in the legislature, but sadly, we don't have courts that agreed when some of these issues came up. Let's see what happens during the fake electors investigation that has been reported on coming out of the Attorney General's office. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Next question. How can we harness the power of voters under 30 years old? Are there any best practices?
Yeah, let's not tell them what's important. Let's listen to them. Let's listen to what young people have to say. I get asked this, some iteration of this question all the time. What do we tell young people? How do we recruit young people? How do we turn out young people? Listen to them. Give them the power and the dignity of their own experience. Figure out what's important to them. That's theirs. They own it. And I say that about my own kids. Although my own kids don't listen to me, I got to listen to them. But bottom line is this. I never had to go through live shooter drills in my school to figure out how I was going to survive alive, knowing that kids my age had been killed in this country. I never had to lose a year and a half or 2 of socialization due to a global pandemic that killed millions of people globally. I never had to deal with that paranoia as I was growing up. I never had to deal with the notion that some American cities were going to be completely underwater, if not vanished, by the time I get into my 40s and 50s. I never had to deal with a world that looked like the world they have to live with. So who am I to tell them anything? Because as far as they're concerned, I'm part of the problem. So I'm going to give them a little bit of grace, and I'm going to exercise a little humility, and I'm going to listen to voters under 30. And I'm going to give them a little bit of time. And maybe by listening to them, instead of just telling them what we think is important, we'll be able to get more of them to come out and exercise that very, very fierce power that they have. But we don't have to do a hell of a lot of it because they're coming out. Young people are starting to get engaged. They're starting to get involved because their lives are not looking as good as our lives did. They don't have the upward trajectory that we had. Folks my age, I'm 53, had as we were growing up. So we got to listen.
This is a comment I'm going to read. It's not a question, but I think it's important. In the chat, it says, newcomer here. I don't have a question, but I wanted to say thanks for helping support LGBT folks in Arizona. It's super scary for a lot of states right now, and I'm hoping to join up and help it not get scary here. That thanks goes out to everyone here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's a family question for me. You know, we advocate not just for the people we care about and folks who don't have their own voices, but we got to fight for our own families. And for me, this is a family issue, right? Equality and fairness, and you got to love who you love. That shouldn't be a part of politics. That should just be basic human dignity that we should extend to everyone, and decency and kindness. I mean, you can fight like hell on the issues, but when it comes to humanity, there's no fight there. You just got to be humane.
Can we find enough candidates to run?
Everybody on this call can be a candidate, and I don't want to hear any, oh well, I can't run, oh I this, oh I that. Can you imagine if you know, the any of the founders were like, we're not going to give up everything. We wouldn't have a republic. What about if I didn't run? Who would be the Secretary of State right now? What about if Katie didn't run? Who'd be our governor right now? Why are you exempt? And I'm talking to you, every single one of you. And there are circumstances that will keep some folks. Some folks are not citizens. They're just very engaged community members. There are some folks who, you know, may have a felony conviction in their dark past, but they're still engaged and they still want to make a difference. Okay, cool. But the rest of us really, like, what does it mean to be a citizen? Is it only voting? Is it just being engaged? Or do you sometimes got to stick your neck out and take a chance and be brave and be courageous and engage and actually do those things? You know, there was a guy, an old man named Marshall. He's a 92-year-old World War II vet. This is several years ago. I'm not sure if he's alive anymore. He was on a ship. And he said they had a mantra that they spoke to. It was the 10 little 2-letter words that they worked on. And everybody knew the 10 little 2-letter words. The whole ship knew the 10 little 2-letter words. And this ship was in the Pacific. They did their fighting. They did the stuff they needed to do. And then after the war in the Pacific was over, they sailed through the Panama Canal. They went to Europe. They loaded up with a bunch of American GIs, and there was way over capacity on this boat. And they came back across the Atlantic to bring them all home from the European theater. And these 10 little 2-letter words kept everybody moving. Those 10 little 2-letter words kept every single one of them on their mission. They knew what they had to do to get the job done. The ship hit a storm in the middle of the Atlantic. They were literally a week away from dock in New York City to bring them all home. And unfortunately, a side of the ship ripped open and they lost 5 souls in that storm. But they finally made it home to New York. And those 10 little 2-letter words kept every one of those men on that ship. It kept them focused, it kept them on their mission, and it kept them moving forward. And it should motivate every single one of you. And you should say these 10 little 2-letter words to yourself and ask yourself, if it is to be, it is up to me. And say those 10 little 2-letter words to yourself and empower yourself. Because when we talk about going and looking for candidates, you might not have to look any further than the mirror in front of you. If it is to be, it is up to me. That's what got me moving to become Secretary of State. I had just lost Maricopa County Recorder's race, which is big enough to be a statewide race, as most of you know. I didn't need politics. I can make a hell of a lot more money with 3 girls going into college. Why would I stick myself with a $70,000 a year job and all the headaches that come along with this? Because if it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it is up to me. If you're not saying that to yourself, every time you decide to pick up the phone and call, every time you decide to knock on a door, every time you decide to write a postcard, every time you decide to write a check to a candidate, every time you think about whether or not you can actually do this, you can become that candidate. If it is to be, it is up to me. Those are the 10 little 2-letter words that I leave you with, Democrats. Arizona needs every single one of you to do your level best to help us create an environment where our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters and other will feel safe, will feel at home, where our old population will have what they need to live peacefully in their last days, where our young people will be able to be happy and healthy and safe and nearby their homes because there are economic and educational opportunities in their communities, either in our bigger cities or out there in greater Arizona. If it is to be, it is up to me, is what we as Democrats should be doing, every single one of us. Think about it, repeat that mantra, and let's go win in 2024, folks. Our future depends on it. I'm Adrian Fontes, your Secretary of State. I've overstayed my welcome. I certainly appreciate it. Larry, thank you so much for your leadership. Thanks to everybody on this call. I'm going to sign off. You all have a wonderful evening. And don't forget, we need your support at electfontes.com as well. Have a great evening, everybody.
Adrian, I just want to say thank you so much. We really appreciate you speaking to us. You're such an inspiring speaker. And I just wanted to convey to you that you can count on LD18. We are going to support you. We are going to be there. We're going to knock on doors for you. And more power to you. And if it is to be, it's up to me. Those are words to live by. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. You guys have a wonderful evening. Good night.